let's get right into this thing. The D2 playoffs. And I think the best way to start it is to talk about the current structure, and then we'll talk about maybe why it's not ideal for the for the actual playoffs. Right now in Division II football, you have 4 geographic regions with 7 teams in each, right? And there's 3 weeks of rankings that come out to kind of see who's going to be selected in those regions by obviously a separate committee. So the 7 teams that are deemed the best in this region are getting to the playoffs. But here's the first glaring issue. If there are 9 quality teams in this region and 5 quality teams in this region, do we move over? No. 7 and 7. That means 2 quality teams are being left out over here for you mathematicians, and 2 non-quality teams are making it into the playoffs in said region. Tough. Now, the regions currently are a little bit different, but this has been released semi-recently. The regions are going to change when it comes to 2025 as Conference Carolinas begins sponsorship of their conference. And I can talk about that news a little bit as well as we kind of kick this thing off. But there's the 4 super regions. Again, this is not until 2025, so we still have a couple seasons until this officially takes effect. But Conference Carolina is kind of an interesting piece. The teams featured in this conference will be as follows. Barton, Showen, Erskine? I'm totally butchering that. UNC Pembroke, North Greenville, and Shorter are all in. The 2025 season, they will be in Conference Carolinas. So kind of interesting there. You're poaching from a couple different conferences. I think the SAC, the MEC, the GSC, there's a couple that are getting poached from all these different conferences. It kind of be interesting to see how they respond to that and try and, address that. But there's been a lot of teams that have history in the Conference Carolinas, App State being one of them. Way back when, they stopped in like 67. But there's a lot of D2 teams that have also had stints in this conference. But it looks like their most recent members have been, 1972? 1974. That appears to be the last time that they sponsored any kind of team in football. So this has kind of been a long time coming, it sounds like. But anyways, to get away from that, this is the map right here. So Super Region 1, again, this takes effect in 2025. Super Region 1 is the CIAA, the MEC, the NE10, and the PSAC. Super Region 2 has Conference Carolinas, that's the CC, the Gulf South, the SAC, and the SEAC. Super Region 3 is the GLIAC, the GLVC, the GMAC, and the NSIC. And Super Region 4 is the GAC, the LSC, the Lone Star, the MIAA, and then the RMAC. So this is actually better than what it currently is. As it stands right now, Super Region number 3 has the GLIAC, the MIAA, and the GAC. 3 really solid conferences, and we saw that this year. When we'll take a look at the final rankings for this year, I think 4 out of the top 6 are Super Region 3 teams, or maybe even more than that. And that's why this system is incredibly flawed. But that's kind of an idea of what these regions and how they're going to change. I don't know why this isn't. You look at Super Region 3, for example, the GLIAC, the Great Lakes Valley Conference, the Great Mid-American Conference, and then the Northern Sun. Geographically makes so much more sense. Why would the MIAA be in that conference? I don't know. I don't know who the hell was sitting around the table and had the map to do this. But let's talk about why it stinks, right? And I'll bring the camera back on me so you can see my rant here. This is why the current setup sucks. Take, for example, this year. We'll start with this year. You have Colorado School of Mines and Harding, the Bisons. They meet in the championship. Fantastic. The 2 best teams in football. I certainly think so. I wouldn't argue it any other way. Let's look at this model that's going to be adopted in 2025. You notice in Super Region 4, the GAC and the RMAC are both in Super Region 4. What does that mean, Kobe? That means Harding and Colorado Mines, at the latest, would meet in the quarterfinal round. So if they supposedly, which, again, this year they were, the 2 best teams in football are meeting in the quarterfinals, what you're doing is robbing us of quality semifinal and championship games. Now, on the flip side of that, were Harding and Colorado School of Mines the best 2 teams this year? I think there's certainly a great argument for that. But there's always a but, right? There is always a but. Let's look at Harding's route to the national championship. Once again, I believe from Reddit College Football, so shout out to the tweets. It makes it easier for me digging up all this stuff. This is Harding's route to the College Football National Championship in Division II. They get a bye the first week because they are the 1 seed in the region. The next week, they host, which, by the way, they hosted all these except for the championship game. They host Central Missouri. The best offense in Division II with the Harlan Hill winner over there and Zach Zabrowski, absolute dog. 35-34. They block an extra point to escape overtime against the Mules on their home field. That game was incredible. It was a tight, tough game. Both offenses having great performances. Look at the next week in the quarterfinal round against number 2, Grand Valley State, 7-6. Grand Valley leads 6-0 for almost the entire contest. Harding goes down, scores late, 1-point game. Literally the same thing as last week, but instead of offense, it was defense, flexing their muscles the entire game. Grand Valley State's front 7 shows out. We've seen Harding do it a lot. They get the best of Grand Valley in that one. Okay, those are fantastic second round and third round games. Semifinal and championship must have been super competitive, right? You'd be wrong, actually. You'd be very wrong. Lenoir-Rhyne, quality football team that they are. Nothing taken away from Lenoir-Rhyne. They went over to Searcy, Arkansas, and they went back to North Carolina, somewhere over there. I don't know what city they're from, with their tail tucked between their legs because they got an ass whooping over there in Searcy, Arkansas. 55-14, the game could have been busted open even more than that. They could have scored 70 if they want to. They go to the championship. Colorado School of Mines shows up, scores on the first drive, 7-0. Harding rattles off 38 unanswered and rolls in the national championship game. I understand. They play the flex bone. It's certainly hard to game plan and predict for that kind of thing. I totally get it. I don't care. With that being said, I don't care. Why are the 2 best games that this team has played in the playoffs their first 2 games as opposed to their last 2 games? Something is flawed. Super Region 3, and this is not all of history, this is the last 3 years. Super Region 3, the winner of Super Region 3 has dominated, not won, dominated the national championship game, and it has robbed us all of really great football that could have been. So let's talk more examples. If I didn't illustrate it enough already, let's just talk some more examples, right? Ferris. Let's go last year. Just looking at it. Ferris State football in 2022, obviously before this year, back-to-back defending national champions. Last year, they go 14-1. They lose to Grand Valley in the Anchor Bone Classic by 1 point. 2 of the best teams in the country. They get a rematch with Grand Valley in the second round of the playoffs, third round of the playoffs. So it was in the regional final. They win that one. 24-21. I'll pull it up on the screen, actually, so you guys can just see it and not have to just take my word for it. There we are. So here's their run in the playoffs last year. Here we go. First round of the playoffs, they match up against a Davenport team that they're very familiar with in the GLIAC. They curb stomped them, 41-7. Okay, now here we go. It gets interesting. Pittsburgh State, really quality opponent out of the MIAA. Had no business this being a second-round matchup. 17-14. Gave them arguably the best game of the playoff run. Then you get Grand Valley State within Super Region 3, 24-21, a field goal. Fantastic game, came down to the final moments. There we go. Semifinal and championship game. 38-17, 41-14. Now let me tell you what. Halftime of the championship game, I believe, was 21-0 over Colorado School of Mines. A very good Colorado School of Mines team that at the time had a Harlan Hill Award winner in John Matoka. Their defense did not know what the fuck to do with Ferris State. Absolutely not. That's bad for football. It's bad for Division II. This is not... When people tune into Division II football, right? Why is it bad for football? When people tune into Division II football, casual fans, you're watching the semifinals, you're watching the finals, because that's on ESPN Plus and ESPN3, whatever the hell it is. If you're showing up, this is your first time watching Division II football, and you're watching an ass-kicking live on your television set, you might never watch Division II football again. If you show up and you're watching Pittsburgh Ferris State, GV Ferris State, this is just this year example. There's so many other great contests. I'm just talking in 2022, those specific examples. Those are games that are exciting, right? Harding versus Central Missouri, Harding versus GV. Those are games that are going to make people want to maybe dive into D2 football. Oh, these are really great teams just going at it. Absolute slugfest. Instead, the national product that we as Division II, I say we, I guess because I'm a former player, so I can say we, I think, right? The national product we are putting on television is subpar. And you're not going to continue to get more eyes in the game, which apparently is the ultimate goal of the NCAA, which I don't fucking believe for 1 second because of the deal with Huddle and all of the streaming rights I think that went on this postseason. If really your idea is to, their goal is to get more eyes in the game, this is bullshit. It's terrible. And, we can look at two. I'll have to pull it up because I didn't have it pulled up before. But Wayne Cavati, who I obviously have a lot of respect for, he does a great job covering all things Division II. He puts out his final top 10 rankings, or I guess just final power rankings for Division II, if you will. And I will pull them up right now, and I want you to notice something. And again, Super Region 3 has not always been dominant. Years prior, you could have said the Gulf South and Super Region that would be number 4, correct? I'm all over the place. I don't know. But the Gulf South with Valdosta State and West Florida and that kind of run, you could have said that was the dominant super region. Absolutely. I'm here for it. We shouldn't have to have that. That should not be the case whatsoever. So here's the final top 10 from Wayne Cavadi, and I think you'll notice some things right off the rip here. The obvious number 1 is Harding. I mean, they won the damn thing, so you're going to put them at number 1. Number 2, School of Mines. Sure, they win the head-to-head versus Grand Valley to open the season. You have that. And they're still a very fucking good football team. Nothing taken away from those guys. They're fantastic. Here we go. Number 3, Grand Valley State. Number 4, Pittsburgh State. Number 5, Central Missouri. You're telling me 4 out of the top 5 teams in the country are in the same geographic region. It gets better. Now you go Lenoir-Rhyne, Valdosta, Ferris. 5 of the 8 best teams in the country, again, according to Wayne, he covers this sport. He's been covering this sport forever. I certainly would agree with him. Maybe I'm biased because I played in the 5 of the top 8 best teams in the country are playing in the same super region. It's flawed. The system is flawed. You're robbing people of very good football. And it sucks. I hate it. As a fan of this and a fan of D2 football in general, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Can you tell? Probably not. But those are the rankings. And now, okay, all my complaining out of the way. What's your solution, Kobe? You got a better fucking idea? Sorry, I'm a lot of cussing already. Sorry. What's your solution, Mr. Big Brain? You got a better idea? You got an alternative for us? I have an easy option, which I feel like would be the easiest for the NCAA to adopt. And the simple answer is follow the FCS model, right? The simple fact, and I'm pulling it up here, but the simple fact that North Dakota State and South Dakota State can meet in the national championship should be all we need to know about their model of football that tells us it is working correctly. Those teams are in the same league, Missouri Valley Conference, I do believe. They're also 2 of, I think, 3 states in the United States that don't have FBS football, so shocker that their FCS teams are incredibly good. But the fact, Montana being the other one, and they're playing for a championship, look at that. The fact that those 2 teams can meet in the championship with them being rivals geographically not far at all, that makes that football more enjoyable because that was the best game all year, right? Okay, so let's look at the playoff format. You do have automatic bids, and since it's currently at 24 teams right now, 24-team format, the FCS playoffs feature the champion of every conference except for the Southwestern Athletic Conference and the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conferences. So they send their champions to the Celebration Bowl. That would be the SAC and the MEAC, so the HBCU squads, they have that Celebration Bowl. And then the Ivy League opts out of the postseason. Other than that, everyone is included within this pool. The Big South and the Ohio Valley formed a scheduling alliance and send 1 representative. And then the ASUN and the Western Athletic Conference combined to form the United Athletic Conference, specifically for football. So they have 1 rep as well. So this is where it gets interesting. 24 teams, FCS has 10 automatic bids. So look at it this year. You know, if you go, again, for you mathematicians out there, 24 spots, 10 automatic bids, that leaves 14 at large. And this is the big problem with Division III football because you have so many Division III conferences that you're leaving only 4 at large bids. Right now, D3 had a 32-team playoff system. There were 28 automatic bids in Division III football this year, which means if you didn't win your conference, if there were 2 great teams in a conference and one of them gets left out because there's only 4 at-large bids in the whole Division III. Division II, thankfully, is not plagued with that same problem. Division II, when the Conference Carolinas is reinstated, will have 16 total conferences. So, I don't know how many teams you want in there, but say you have a 28-team pool. Right? Following the current method, right? 4 regions, 7 teams per region, excuse me. If you keep the 28-team pool, you have 16 automatic bids if every conference gets an automatic bid. Conference Carolinas in their first year might not even get an automatic bid, right? And there might be a couple others that maybe you'd say no. Even if they did, 16 automatic bids, humor me here, 28-team pool, that leaves at least 12 at-large bids. So now you win the conference, you're in. Fantastic. I think that's a great idea. But there's 12 other spots for teams that are very quality teams that didn't win their conference but still get a shot at playing in the playoffs. And then the top I don't know, top 4 seeds, top whatever seeds would still get a bye. You could still run the playoffs very similarly. It's just how you're selecting the teams and the criteria used in organizing the bracket, I think, is the biggest thing. And then I think the biggest, maybe not proponent. What's the opposite of proponent? Not component. My vocab's not there tonight. But the biggest argument against this, and what I maybe can understand a little bit, financials. Geographically, if you're scheduling games against teams that are further and further away, it costs more money. No shit. Division II football programs are not plagued by the same problem as Division III football programs, for the most part, right? This is scholarship level football. You are putting forth a lot of money to your football program. So are Division III, by the way. It just goes into facilities and other things, right? It's just not in scholarships. I don't want to say anything there, but these Division III schools, not all of them, but there are a lot of them that are smaller private institutions that can't afford to make these trips, whatever. I simply do not think, I know playoff budgets get opened up. Like, this is very serious at this level. Like, playoff budgets are totally separate from regular season budgets, and you will get the funding to do this stuff. I don't really humor that argument until there are some really cold, hard numbers put in front of me, because being at a Division II institution and working with teams that have gone on to national playoffs, not football team here, but other teams, not an issue, right? You're going to get there. So I don't really find that argument very feasible. And I think for that reason, because we don't have so many conferences, right, 28 automatic bids in Division III is ridiculous. This FCS format, we'll go back to it and talk a little bit, just close on it here. It would make a lot more sense. Then in the FCS, it's actually not the top 4, but it's the top 8 national seeds receive the first round buys. So that doesn't really matter. It could be 4, it could be 8. I don't know if it could be freaking 2. It doesn't matter, but that's just how the FCS runs it. So, and they give a really cool mock-up in this article. If the FBS had adopted this playoff format this year, this would have been, all the matchups and certain things like that. But it just makes so much more sense. And it comes down to this. This is my final thing I'll leave you with. The best football should be played in December. That's all it is. The best football should be played in mid-December. It should be played in the semifinal and the championship game. And if it's not, someone fucked up because that team shouldn't be there, or they got exposed or had some crazy injuries or something. Or it's because we didn't give the best teams a chance to get there and they met prematurely here instead of at the top. That's not a great analogy visually, but for you people listening, just go with it. I think that's it. Let me step physically off my soapbox. The NCAA is screwing over Division II football. Not very happy about it. From the viewership standpoint with Warner Brothers Productions and Huddle to the playoff selections, and apparently it's going to continue to plague the sport. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But we can transition, switch gears over. Let's talk about the good in Division II football, and that was the national championship game.